We are in the break room, and we are 555, your Locals podcast. I'm Eric Peterson, Communications Director for the Local. With some big news today, I am joined by President Abilio Villaverde. Abilio, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing very well. Also joined by District 2 Representative Edgar Jimenez. Edgar, how you doing?
Pretty good, sir.
All right, this, like I said, right off the top, it's a big deal. I think, labor organizers, civil rights leaders for over 100 years have fought for days like today where we can announce something like this. Abilio, what do we got going?
We have fully translated our gold C.B.A. into the Spanish language.
And how big of a deal is that?
It's huge. Doing research on this, there are no other TWU unions that have a Spanish version of their C.B.A. And this is something that Edgar and these two gentlemen took on. And obviously very early on, we campaigned on this, and this became kind of a back burner thing for us. And thankfully, Edgar stepped up and he hit it out of the park.
I mean, if you think throughout history, if Cesar Chavez had this ability, a hero of all of ours, I'm sure, if the Polish and German and Italian immigrants working in factories in the Midwest and East had this for them, how big of a deal and how much progress would have been made over the past 100 years. But the fact that we're starting this now with TWU moving forward, it's going to change organized labor for generations to come. And I'll just start off the top and I'll say it again later. Great job, everybody.
There might be more unions out there that have been wanting to do this. When I first started researching this, there was no one I could follow. So there was no blueprint for this. Maybe Edgar and his team has now set the blueprint for other unions, and that's great.
Many politicians go out on the campaign trail and, they make promises, they say things, some things they get to, some things they don't, some things they purposely forget about. You've had a big year. You've had a lot going on for the past 9 months. And so, like you said, this was a back burner, but it wasn't not important. So it was important for you to delegate this responsibility.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that initially I didn't go to Edgar. Edgar called me one day and said, hey, a member came up with this idea. And I said, well, that's kind of actually something that we had campaigned on. And there was a conversation in Fort Lauderdale about what dialect would you put this in? So then I started having conversations with the international, and I say, hey, look, there could be some legal obligations that you need to make sure you fulfill. And so when Edgar took this on, we definitely consulted with the lawyer, and there is a disclaimer there. So we want to make sure that's known that the English version of the C.B.A. is the official version on it, in case there are any words that may mean different to people in different dialects and languages.
Okay, Edgar, he talked about the process and how difficult it was. You were there right at the get. You yourself, a first-term district rep, kind of got thrown in the deep end right at the beginning. Tell us how difficult it was and what was a process that you went through.
First of all, what made it easy and what was difficult is two different things. So I guess what made it easy, I want to say first, was that I had the support from the board, had the support from everybody. And what made it difficult from the very beginning was finding that company that was just not only qualified, but was also qualified in examples that they've done it before in other airlines. So I found this company out of Orlando, and she said, hey, we've translated some things for Avianca. That was interesting. Then I told her, okay, you think that whoever was involved with Avianca, whatever pilot you worked with, will you be able to bring him in so he could help us with little details here and there? And she was like, yeah. And it was just like a great match. Off the rip, it was a great match. She has some type of experience translated for the aviation industry, and I think that was going to help us greatly.
I mean, contract language is difficult enough, and to be able to translate it into another language, were there things that were not translatable that you kind of had to punt on, and that's why we have the disclaimer?
Yes, sir. So there was just a lot of stuff. I'll give you an example. There's even in our culture, we have a word that we use for seniority, señoría. And we were trying to find ways of how to simplify things like that. But there was a lot of examples throughout the book. When you read the contract, you're going to see those examples. And thankfully for that pilot, he was able to help us and give us suggestions of what should be said.
I want to bring in Gold Book negotiator and Civil and Human Rights Committee member Jesus Gomez Garcia from Orlando. You've spent many a year having to deal with contractual language and this contract in particular and lawyers. So you know how specific you have to be when you make those translations.
Absolutely, absolutely, and thank you for having me on here, Eric. It was absolutely paramount that we got everything right. Right, we had to collaborate. We had to make sure that when we took this undertaking, that it was done correctly, and so we wanted to pay attention to every detail that we could because it is personal to all of us, being Hispanic and Latino, and so we wanted to make sure we got this right.
Was there a necessity to you that you heard previous to this being undertaken?
Well, if I'm being honest, I didn't understand why it hadn't been done. It's been a long time coming. There is a large concentration of Latinos that are members with TW 555, and quite frankly, this is an inclusivity concern, right? We wanted to make sure that they felt included because not everybody can read that contract and understand everything that comes out of it, right? Not everybody is able to comprehend everything. So we wanted to bring it to a level where they could understand it because ultimately the goal is to make sure that you have a more educated membership. And if you have a high concentration in population of Hispanics, you want to make sure that they're educated as well.
So speak to that as a Civil and Human Rights Committee member, that inclusivity, that intersectionality, and, that solidarity that we're trying to improve upon.
Absolutely. Because I'm part of that committee, it is very personal to me. I'm also involved with LACLA, which is the Labor Council for Latin American Advancement, and I'm very, very involved with that with Central Florida. And so the Hispanic culture, because it's kind of ingrained in me, I was born in Puerto Rico. I do want to make sure, I wanted to make sure that our Latino brothers and sisters felt like they belonged. And because this contract, the previous contracts had always been in English, there is always that concern that how do we educate our Latino brothers and sisters out there so they feel like they're part of the union? And by taking this undertaking and doing it and actually following through and completing it, we feel that that message is going to be well received, that our Latino brothers and sisters are going to feel like they're part of the union cares about them and about their contributions to this local.
I want to bring in Khayan Martinez. He's an alternate rep out of Orlando, part of Edgar's team. Khayan, can you see a day one instance where you're going to be able to use this to help your members?
The most important part about it is just that we have a lot of people that it's hard enough for them to actually like read the whole thing in English, and there's like vocabulary that they might not like, they might miss out on, and it might change the whole perception and comprehension of it. So the Spanish side of things will actually makes more sense because they can actually like comprehend what's really going on and the interpretation of whatever they actually reading for it. So showing them that we have a book that they can actually rely on a lot and trust it more than the other, in that the English version is actually a good thing that I can point out to them, that they don't have to rely that much on us or somebody else. They can actually come up to their own conclusion for whatever they're actually searching for.
I mean, here's a real world instance that I'm sure you have all dealt with because you have been or are now reps. And that is not every rep is Spanish speaking. So it could be a time where there is not a fluent Spanish speaking rep. And so there is stuff that could be lost in translation, and maybe a member could maybe feel like they aren't being heard, or a rep may feel like they aren't being heard. Can anybody give me a specific instance where that happened, Edgar?
Yeah, so from the very beginning, when Abilio said that, I had a member call me. Actually, he's a elected rep in Tampa, Michael Crotch. He called me. He said, "Hey, man, I'm having difficult sometimes with explaining, certain things in a contract. Obviously, the contract's in English, and I have a lot of members that are Hispanic or Latino." And he told me his I guess his troubles trying to convey the right answer to that agent. So I told him, I said, "Man, I always thought about seeing the Spanish contract come out since we have a big work group of Latinos." And I said, Michael, he bought that fire back in me. And shortly after, I did a call with Abilio, and I said, "Abilio, we have a problem and we got to fix this." And yeah, he agreed.
I mean, I say that because there might be some people that might be listening to this that will say, well, that's not going to affect me at all. But it is going to, if one member is helped by this, or if one rep is helped by this, Abilio, we are all helped by this because we're in this together.
Yes. Yeah, we're a brotherhood. And I can't thank my union brothers here for taking this on, because it's tremendous. I know, talking to Edgar sometimes on his Friday calls, he went from our Friday call to that Friday call. Like, he put a lot of time. They all did. And I think this local owes these three gentlemen a big thank you.
I want to get into one specific when I looked through the Spanish language version of the contract, and that is a tangible asset that I was asking Khayan about earlier that they can use on day one, and that is Appendix A. And the fact that you can put the one that's in the contract right next to someone who doesn't speak Spanish like myself can point to one line and point to the other. That means that. Those two things coincide. So if you write this here, you write that there.
Absolutely. I think that our main focus when we sat down together with me, Jesus, and Khayan was exactly what you see on whatever page. It's going to be identical in the English version. And Appendix A was something that I wanted to work on. Make sure that every letter, every word was translated into Spanish.
The hard part about it too was actually when we're reading like certain articles or certain subsections, it's actually like making sure that the purpose of that subsection and the meaning that was trying to convey to other people, it actually coincides on the Spanish side. Because there's a lot of times that you can use a word and that word actually doesn't mean what you're trying to give the meaning to.
Right.
So we had to like reread in English, reread in Spanish, and just make sure that we actually tying up both of them.
It was quite an accomplishment to be on the negotiating committee. It was one of the highlight of my career as a union advocate. This also is a very distinct honor for me because it was so personal to me. It was something that I felt previously years ago that was needed. It was always a situation where you would walk through the station and you would run across a Latino brother and they would ask you a question. Hey, listen, and they would ask you in Spanish, listen, hey, what does it mean this? How do I do this? And of course, me being the person that wants to educate, you want to sit there and you want to try to translate it for them. And then you would eventually get the question is like, how come they don't have a Spanish version of this, man? And then you don't really have an answer for it, right? You really don't know how to answer that. And so that within itself kind of motivated me. And when Edgar brought this proposition to me, the goal of trying to accomplish this, I said, heck yeah, man, let's get this done. This needs to be done. Let's do it. And I was excited about it. We are all excited about it. Again, I can't stress enough how personal this is for us. It's a big accomplishment. And we hope that our Latino brothers and sisters that are TWU 555 local members appreciate what we are bringing to them.
And let's stress again that this is not just for our Latino brothers and sisters. This is for all our members. We will all be helped by this.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, you're 100% correct there.
Abilio, when is this going to be available, and how are people going to be able to get it?
So right now it's going to be digital version. I did tell the company that yesterday that we did accomplish this, and I told them that they wanted to print it, they could, and we'll probably have continued conversations with that. But this will go out, I believe it's scheduled to go out end of this week.
Yeah, when this podcast airs.
Yes. And so I'm looking forward to hearing the feedback from it, because these guys were very, very thorough. And I'm very proud, obviously, as a Latino president. This is something that was important to me, and I can't thank these three gentlemen enough for taking this on and again, hitting it out of the park.
Absolutely. I mean, we spend so much time in a fighting for our members, fighting with our members to make sure that they're more educated, making sure the company, we're holding their feet to the fire, dealing with economic consequences that we have no control over. We spend so much time. We don't really want to spike the football because we got to get back on D. We don't know what's coming. And I'll mix a metaphor in here. Now we're out there, white and blue jersey with 555 on the back, and just knocking one out from 30 feet and backpedaling down the court before the ball even hits the bottom of the net. And congratulations again. This is really great. It's a great day for labor. It's a great day for our brotherhood and our sisterhood. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
We are in the break room. This is TWU Local 555's podcast. Some more music for you there. Find us wherever you find your podcasts: Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Audible. Find us on the website. I just got a merch idea. For a TWU Local 555 jersey. Maybe a soccer jersey, baseball jersey, football jersey, basketball jersey. Merch store is available at TWU555.org, and that is where you will find the Spanish language collective bargaining agreement, your gold book. How do you say gold book in Espanol?
Oro.
There you go. You'll find it there, TWU555.org. For President Abilio Villaverde, District 2 Representative Edgar Jimenez, Gold Book Negotiator and Civil and Human Rights Committee member Jesus Gomez Garcia, and alternate rep out of Orlando, Khayan Martinez, I am Eric Peterson, and we are all 555.